Hi and welcome to this DCP Web tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to use Blender to create this sci-fi text animation with these boxes that kind of disintegrate, not necessarily disintegrate, but break apart as we fly through using our camera. So we'll open up this example. So I made this little mock-up example. I was experimenting with Blender, trying to think of an idea of some sort of sci-fi intro text. You can use any text in here that you like. And if we just run through it a little bit slower, we've got the camera that zooms out first and then it flies towards the boxes, and you can see the boxes start to break apart. So they break apart like panes of glass. You can pretty much see through these boxes. And as we fly towards the camera, the volumetric light will change, and then we'll get towards this sci-fi text, and we see that quite clearly here, sci-fi. And as we get closer, the volumetric light gets darker and these particles fly out, and then it flies through towards this hyphen. Not hyphen, is it? It's yeah, this hyphen here. So we want to create something like this, but let's aim to do something better. I reckon we can do something better than this. So let's close this. Let's go to Blender and open up Blender. We'll click on General, and then we'll click on the light source and delete it. Then we'll go to File, Save As, and I'm on my folder. I've got this this file here called Sci-Fi Text Boxes -01. To give you a file a sensible name, I'm going to overwrite this one, and then we'll rotate around so the x-axis is this way and the green axis, the y, is this way. And we can see the camera over here. Let's zoom right out. We'll click on this box and we'll go to the modifier, click Add Modifier and click Array. Then we want to set this relative here. On the x-axis, this one here, we want to set it to 1.2, and you can see it puts a little gap in between the boxes, like a 0.2 gap here. And then we want to set this to 20. So basically we've got 20 boxes now in a row, all evenly spaced out by 1.2. Let's click Apply, then go back to the modifier, click Add Array again, and then this time we want to set this to 0. So set this first here to 0 and set the z-axis to 1.2. Now we're going to stack the boxes in the upwards direction, and we want to stack them 20 high as well. So we've got 20 by 20. So this is how powerful the array modifier can be. We started with one box, and now we've got 400 boxes within a few mouse clicks, all stacked evenly. So if you wanted to try and do this manually, you can imagine copy them across, space them out, it will take you forever. So the array modifier is very powerful in that way. So we've got 20 by 20 boxes, that's 400 in total, and we'll click Apply. Okay, let's go to Object, click on the boxes, make sure they're selected, go to Object, Set Origin, Geometry to Origin. What does that do? Just to give you an example, right here you see this little orange dot, right there. That's actually the middle point of this first box, right? It's like the midpoint. So what we want to do is take all of these boxes and put the midpoint in the center here, in the center box. So to do that, we'll go Object, Set Origin, Geometry to Origin, and that moves the whole geometry to that origin point. So that gives us a good rotation point. So if we want to rotate all these boxes 360, it's going to rotate from that midpoint, right? That's what we want. We'll press number 3. Number 3 takes us into right orthographic. Let's go to File, Save. So we're in right orthographic. We'll click on the Move tool, and we're going to zoom in. Click on the blue arrow, drag it up so that it's 2 boxes away from the floor. 2 boxes, 2 of these little boxes, right? Roughly 2 boxes. Can be a little bit more, a little bit less, but we want at least like 2 boxes. Let's zoom back out the middle mouse click and move the mouse to the right side, and that takes us to the front view. Let's just hold down the Shift key and the middle mouse button, and we want to pan around to around this sort of, you want the boxes to be sort of this sort of distance for now. Press Ctrl-Alt-0. When you press Ctrl-Alt-0, everything will go grey. Let's go to File, Save. That means the camera cannot see these boxes. The camera's focal length isn't far enough, or the clipping length. So we'll click on the camera, click on the camera settings here, Object Data, and set the endpoint to like 350. Now you can see them. And we would just want to position the camera so that we can get these boxes nicely centered out. So let's click on the Object Data for the camera. Let's straight away set the X location to 0. That will put the camera right in the middle. Then on the rotation, we want to set it to 90 degrees. So let's rotate it 90, and then all the other rotations we can set them to 0. That should roughly get our boxes in the middle, and then we can just adjust it with the Z-axis, right? Let's just adjust it to something like this. So we want kind of an even space at the bottom and an even space at the top. That's what we want. So this should be good. And let's use the Y-axis to move closer to something like this. So we want the gap at the top and the bottom to be a lot smaller. Okay, let's go to File Save, or let's go to File Save As and save it as version 2 and click Save. Then we want to now let's middle mouse click and rotate around the side. So when we rotate around the side, we can see the camera here and the boxes here. Let's go to the boxes, click on them, and let's see, let's click on these boxes. So click on the boxes, make sure they're selected, which is the cube here, right? It's called cube. Let's call it cubes with an S because there's more than one, cubes. And we'll go to the particle system, click new particle, and we had 20 by 20, right? And each box has for 6 sides. So let's do 20 by 20 should be 400 times by 6 sides per box gives us 2,400. So we want number of particles 2,400 here. So those will be our particles. Let's go to the first frame. Let's go to File Save, and then let's set the, let's go to the render, and in here we should leave everything alone. This is all perfectly set up for us. In fact, halo we can set to none for now. That's it, yeah, just set halo to none, render as none, because the cube sides will be the particles themselves. Let's go to File Save, it will make sense more in a minute. Let's go to the cache, let's go to the velocity here and set it to 0. Set the velocity to 0, and then set the field weights here, set the gravity to 0. Go to File Save. You can see I'm saving quite a lot of times. Blender's been crushing on me a little bit at the moment, especially when I'm doing like complex animations. It seems to crash sometimes, so just keep saving your work. Go to the modifier now. So the box is selected, we go to the modifier. This is the particle system, you leave that as it is. Click on the drop down and select explode. Okay, so really what we have now is a particle system, and there's one particle per side of this each cube, and at the moment the gravity and the velocity are set to 0, so these cubes won't move anywhere. So let's press Shift A and we'll insert a force field wind. So we've got this wind force field here, it's quite small, so let's just zoom in a little bit, drag it so that it's behind the boxes. Our camera is over here, the boxes are here, and we want to push the wind in this direction. Now you don't actually have to move this wind object, but I like to move the objects to a location which makes sense in the scene. So I like to put the wind object behind the cubes, so that if I ever need to look for it again, I know I'm thinking to myself, okay, the wind object is pushing in this direction, it's pushing these cubes, so it needs to, if you put it in that location, it kind of makes more sense for me. So click on this field here and call it field wind for now here. And right now if we zoom right in, we can see, we have to get pretty close here, but the wind is pointing in the upwards direction. This arrow here determines which direction the wind is pointing, so we want to point it towards the boxes. So we're going to press we're going to click on the field wind here, press R to rotate on the x-axis, and we want to rotate it, let's see, 90 degrees. To type in 90 and then hit enter, or you can just click here and type in 90 right here. So now you can see the wind is pointing in this direction, but that wind is pretty weak, so we'll click on the field wind, click on the physics for it, and we'll set it to something like 15 for now, and zoom out. Let's press number 3 on our keyboard. Number 3 will take us into the right orthographic. We can zoom in a little bit here. This might be a little bit hard for you to see, but this is the wind object, these are the boxes, and this is the camera right here where my mouse is. So if we move our mouse cursor here, we can see these boxes start to get pushed along, right? Like this. But we want them to move a lot further than that. So let's set the strength to something like 25. And now let's see how far they move. And they move pretty far. Let's see, we might even want to set it higher than that. So let's set it to something like 40 for now. Let's click the play button. And we can see they're moving about this distance, which should be okay. Because that should be enough time for our camera to fly through. And by the time the camera flies through, we don't really care if they're stopping here. Because our camera will get past that point before this is all done. Let's see, let's click on field wind. Let's click on the cubes. We can see now in the timeline it's taking up around, in fact we should set this to 600 frames and then zoom out. So rotate your mouse wheel down here on the timeline and then middle mouse click to drag it across, and then you really want to see like frame 0 here or frame 1 here and frame 600 here. So we're taking up around 240 odd frames here, right? Yeah, just over 240, around 250 frames, which is okay. That's about half of our animation sequence. So we might actually reduce that. I don't think we need to push them that far, but let's see. Let's go to File, Save. And let's press 0. So 0 takes us into the camera view now. And now we can see what's going on with these boxes. They're not moving one by one or box by box. They're breaking up into these segments. So some of it is like, it's all just disjointed, and that's kind of the effect that I wanted. I want it to be a bit random rather than just being solid boxes one by one moving. They're all breaking out into these segments, right? Which kind of gives us this nice sort of broken effect. So we move into the camera view. We can kind of see what's going on here. And our camera's going to fly through these boxes as they're breaking up. So let's sort out the HDRI lighting. First, I think will be a wise move. But before we do that, let's just move to like around frame 100 and press F12. And we can see the boxes in the scene. That's what we want to see. It looks rubbish, don't worry, we'll fix that. Let's go to File, Save. Let's go to our web browser. And we want to go to this folder on our desktop. Let's create a new folder called HDRI. And then we'll go to HDRI Haven. And we'll go down to here and click Browse 200. I'm going to download the usual map I download, which is in the nighttime, and it's going to be the Shanghai. So we'll click on it. I'll put a link to this in the YouTube description, so I'll make some notes here. And we'll go and click download 4K. And we'll drag that into this folder here, HDRI, here. So now is the time for you to experiment with these maps. Don't use the one that use the one that I'm using, but also experiment with some of these other ones. See what the lighting looks like when you use some of these other maps. So maybe we'll pick another one. I don't know why it's going. Okay. Let's see. Let's click on artificial light. And let's scroll down. Let's see what this one looks like. So we'll click on this one as well. And we will go and download the 4K of that one. Let me just go back. I'm going to save this. And I'll put these links in the YouTube description. Let's click 4K download. We'll drag this into here as well. For now, we'll use these two and see what it looks like. I know one's going to be good, but we'll see what they look like. So let's go back to our scene here. Let's go to the shading. Let's go to the world settings. In the camera viewport, press 0 to see the camera view. Let's click on the render view here. Let's go to File, Save As, and save it as version 3. Then we'll click on this green background here and then just hit the delete key to delete that. We'll drag this over to this side and zoom in a little bit to make it easier for you to see. I'm just going to drag this up a little bit here. let's press Shift A, and we're going to do exactly what we do in most of my tutorials. We set an environmental texture, press Shift A and insert a texture coordinate and then a vector mapping. So every one of these we press Shift A to select them, right? We've got 3 of them here. Let's click generated to vector, vector to vector here, and then color to surface here. Click open, go to the HDRI folder, we'll select this lounge one first and click open image. And then we've got this lounge image here, and we can use this mapping tool to rotate it around to give different lighting based on where this HDRI map is pointing. So we'll sort that out afterwards. Let's go to the layout. Let's go to the cubes. Let's click on these cubes and click on the render view for now, and click on cubes. And then let's go to the material, and this, when you load up Blender first time around, you're going to have the light source, which we deleted before. You're going to have the cube, and the cube as default is always got a default material applied to it. So let's click on this material and let's call it cubes, and then hit enter. So now it's called cubes. So let's spell it right. Okay. Cubes, right? So try and name, when you've got an object in here called cubes, try and name the material the same as the object, and it's easier to find later. Let's set the let's set this base color to like a blue color. We might adjust this afterwards. We'll set it to like a light blue color like this, and we'll turn the specular all the way off, set the metallic all the way up, and then set the roughness to around 0.145. In fact, set it to 0.145. Let's go to File, Save. Let's go down to here, and in the screen space refractions, turn it on, and then in the opaque, set it to multiply like this. Then let's go to File, Save. Let's go to the render, and we want to turn on screen space reflections. We'll turn off, let's have a look. What did I do? I should be able to work this out. So let's see. So let's set trace position all the way to the top, and let's set the max roughness to like, when it's really low, so like 0.010. Set to 0.010. The thickness, set it to 1. The edge fading, reduce that all the way down. Let's leave it like this, and we're going to experiment with it a little bit more afterwards. Let's go to File, Save. Let's go to File, Save As, and save it as version 4. And we should turn on bloom for now, and we might adjust the bloom. We'll probably set the radius down a bit, so set it quite low for now. We don't want it too high. Let's see. We'll experiment. Let's leave this a little bit higher, around 6.5 for now, and then we'll adjust it accordingly to make sure we've got no problems with our camera. So let's go to File, Save. Inside the viewport, we're in the camera view at the moment. Press Shift A and insert a UV sphere. So here's this UV sphere. Let's press number 3 on our keyboard. That takes us into the right side orthographic, right? And we can see the boxes here. They're pretty hard to see, but we're going to drag this so that it's in the middle box here. So it's in the center point of this middle boxes. Let's zoom in a little bit here. So we want it on this box in the center point, roughly in the center. Then we can middle mouse click and rotate around. We can see this UV sphere here. And if we zoom right out, we see the camera over here. And we want to enlarge this sphere so that it surrounds the camera. So let's press S to scale, and we're going to scale it right out. In fact, we can just move it here and scale it quicker. So look, you can see the camera's there. I'm going to make it so the camera sits inside this UV sphere. Then press 0. Now the camera is inside this sphere, and we're going to cover up this HDRI background. If someone else knows how to get rid of the HDRI, so if I let's drag this sphere into here. If I hide this sphere, if someone knows how to get rid of this HDRI background without surrounding it with some sort of object or background, then let me know. Because if I press F12 and render, we're rendering it with the sphere, right? If I turn this off and press F12, you can see this background, right? This HDRI background. The only way that I know how to get rid of it is to hide it with a sphere or a cube or some sort of object, or create a background to hide it. But the point is that the sphere is there. So if I middle mouse click and rotate around and zoom out, the sphere here will hide this background image of this HDRI lighting, but the objects inside the sphere will still take the lighting effect, even though you can't see it in the background, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but don't worry. Let's type in background here. So here it says background. Let's double click and copy that text. Click on background, go to the material, click new material. In this material, press Ctrl V and paste this word background. I'm being lazy, I'm copying it from here and pasting it here. Let's click on this color and drag all the way down so it's black. Then turn the roughness all the way up, and then turn the specular all the way down. Right now, let's see. For now, we're going to need to leave the specular up just for the moment. We're going to turn it all the way off afterwards. Let's press save. Let's press number 3 on our keyboard, and we're going to turn off the background. And yeah, let's turn off the background. This HDRI map is really hard to see on, right? So let's go to the shader for now. And let's go to open, and we'll select the other one, the Shanghai one, and click open. We can switch between them afterwards. So when we go to layout, it's much easier to see things now, right? In the layout. So I've just switched the HDRI maps temporarily. We might use this one, we might use the other one, I'm not sure yet. So we've got our camera over here. We want to press Shift A and insert a light spotlight here. So this is the spotlight and it's pointing downwards. So we want to move it and bring it up to around here. Let's bring it a bit closer to the boxes. Let's say around sort of this point here, around here. And we're going to rotate it around so that it's pointing towards the boxes. So there's a couple of ways to do that. Let's drag this into the collection first. So it sits in this, put everything in this collection. Then click on the spotlight. Go to here, and then in the rotation, let's type in 90. So right now, if I type in 90, it's facing the wrong direction. So we want to change this to minus 90 degrees. Minus 90, so it points towards the camera. Then we'll go to the shading here, press Shift A, and we're in the world settings at the moment, right? Press Shift A, and we'll set a shader volumetric scatter. Let's just move this up a little bit. Let's connect the volume to here. In the density, we'll set it to 0.010. And then let's move this option up, this here. I'm not sure where we'll set it. We'll get a rough setting afterwards. Let's set it to around here, 0.78, something like this. And then click here and make it dark. Make it like a dark grey color. Something around this sort of grey, right? Like this sort of grey color. Then let's go back to the layout. Press 0 on our keyboard. Go to File, Save As, and let's set this as version 5. And then let's turn back on our background. And then in theory, let's see. Let's go to the background. Click on the material and turn the specular off. I wonder if I left this on last time. Pretty sure I turned that off. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I turned this off. Let's leave it on. Actually, let's turn it off in a minute. And then let's go to the spotlight. Click on the spotlight and set it to 1500. We don't see anything in here. So let's see. We should in theory be able to see something. Let's have a look here. Okay, let's go back to this background material. Let's just check this is all set up correctly. This all looks fine. So let's try and work this out. Okay, let's go back to the shader. We should probably set this to 0 for now. And then in the layout we should see the boxes. The only way I'm seeing them is if I bring up, see, background. Maybe I had this at a really low setting last time. Let's just check. I think I set that to really quite a low setting. Let's see. See, like these blooms. Let's press F12 here. I don't think it will render because we haven't. It does render out okay. Okay. Let's bring this up a bit. Let's leave this specular at 1 for now. Let's go to the cubes. Let's go to the particle emitter and go to the cache here. And let's click bake for now. So we're going to bake these out just to make sure that when we render anything, we're seeing them in their correct position. And let's go to the, let's turn off the overlays for the minute. We can see it's quite blown out, right? So let's go back to the background and the material, and let's bring this specular down to maybe around 0.2. I'm pretty sure I left this off though last time. So let's go to the camera, click on the camera, and let's just move it forward a little bit. Let's see what's going on here. This volumetric light doesn't seem to be working, so I think that's where the problem is. So let's press Ctrl Z to undo the camera move. Let's middle mouse click and rotate around. So let's see, this is all getting blown out. Look at it. We should see, okay, let's click here. We need to turn on volumetric lighting. That's why we don't see the lighting, and that's probably why in background here, if we turn off specular, now if we press 0, now we see it correctly. Okay, we have to basically here we have to turn on volumetric lighting. Really in here we should set the tile size to 4 and set the samples to 90, and then also in the let's see, in the shading, let's set that to 90 for now. So I was wondering why I couldn't see the cubes, because I'm pretty sure I set this the background specular, set that to 0 because I wanted it to be quite dark like this. So if we move through now, let's see, let's try and turn off, let's turn the bloom off for a minute. Well, let's try and reduce this radius right down. Let's bring it down because you keep seeing them sort of flashes, which is pretty off-putting for the minute. We'll sort that out afterwards. So this this spotlight looks a bit weak. This spotlight here, let's rotate around, and let's see. Let's turn on our overlays. Let's click on that spotlight and let's bring it closer to the cubes. We just want to move it closer, not too close. That's like literally inside the cube. Let's bring it closer to the cube, and we need to power it up. So let's click on the spotlight, go to the settings, and let's set this to around 3000. So that should give it much more light. And then let's see, we want to change this color. We want to make it like a almost like a dark blue. Let's go to the camera view now and press F12. And we'll render at that one scene. So we can see that one thing. That's kind of looking more like what I wanted. We'll play around with the settings a little bit. Maybe the bloom will change that. But let's go forward some frames. And let's move the camera inside of the boxes to see what it looks like. So let's go to Cube. Now let's go to Camera. Click on the camera. And let's move it forward so that it's inside these boxes somewhere like around here. Let's go to File Save and press F12. Now we kind of get to see what those boxes are going to look like as we fly through them. One thing I'm not sure about is these boxes are quite spaced out like this, right? So maybe it's just the camera position that makes, because we've got a gap here, right here there's a gap. And if we render it, we just don't see that gap there. So I don't know if that's something to do with Blender, I'm not quite sure. But it doesn't look like these boxes are moving based on this animation. They just don't move in the same way. Okay, so we won't worry too much about the movement of these boxes. We can see them moving during the actual video of this camera movement. So they will move and flow towards the camera. So that should be fine. But they just won't move exactly where we expect them to move for some reason. Maybe I need to do a bit more reading up on Blender. But at least they'll move forward like this, right? So that's fine. But they're pretty dark, so we want to try and work out how we can improve our lighting. So let's first of all move our camera back. Let's move it back away so we can see those cubes. And let's try and sort out this lighting a bit. Let's try and get it looking a bit more visually better. So maybe the first thing we can do is go to the spotlight. It's already quite a dark blue color. So let's try and set it to a lighter color. That will brighten things up a little bit in this scene. So that will help. Remember, these boxes are almost working as glass now, so they look like glass. So they'll be see-through. When we render them, we should be able to see through them like panes of glass. So let's try and render that frame out. This one frame. Yeah, then you can see like as they're flowing, like this one right here, for example, it's moving towards the camera, but you can still see through it. That's kind of the effect that I wanted when I created this first of all. Okay. Something to let's try and set this to 6,000. Let's brighten it up a bit. Okay, so let's see how that works out. That should be okay. We can play around with the settings afterwards. We can experiment and change the lighting and do some other stuff. But that should be fine for now. We might want to widen out this. See this little yellow dot here? This yellow dot. We can, not the yellow dot, sorry, the blue arrow. This one here, we can widen out our angle, right? So let's widen it out. Let's make this wider by clicking on this blue arrow here and dragging it forward. And that will give us more lighting like this. Let's press 0 now. We can see more lighting here. So let's see, as these boxes flow through, we should see that a bit better now. Should light them up a bit more as well. So first thing we want to do really is we don't want these boxes to move forward straight away. What we want to do is work out when we do want them to move. So probably we're going to run this at 60 frames, right? So we should click here and click on 60 frames a second and go to File Save and just save it as version 6. And I want these boxes to rotate. We want the camera to rotate. Really, the boxes, we don't want to rotate them. So we want the boxes to be still at the beginning. And probably for at least, let's say 60 would be 1 second, right? So between, yeah, we'll say for the first second, we're going to rotate them boxes. And then afterwards, when we finish that rotation, we want the boxes to start moving. So we know in the cube settings here, in the particle emitter, if we delete the bake to free it, or free the bake, delete it, and then we'll set the start frame to 60. So now we know that these boxes will not do anything in these first 60 frames until we get to frame 60. That's how we can tell the boxes to start doing something at a certain point in time. Let's save that and rebake it. Let's click Bake All Dynamics. So we've got these 60 frames. Let's go to the camera, and really I think what we'll do is do the first part of the animation sequence, and then the text, we'll add that afterwards. I think that's kind of a smart move. So let's move this camera forward, right? Let's move it so that it's, you can see, we could start it here, but I want to move it just in front of those boxes to here. So when if we were to render this frame, we should just see blue at the moment. So here all we see is blue color, right? But we don't want to see blue, we want to see black. So we'll sort that out afterwards. So on the first frame, we'll hit the record button, and on the location for the camera, so camera, this location, we'll press I, and we'll press I here. So the camera location right now is set. Then we can move to frame 60, and on frame 60, where's frame 60? Here. So that'll be roughly that is exactly 1 second duration on 60 frames a second, right? We want to move the camera back. So the camera is going to kind of fly backwards first. And I reckon we'll be wise to fly it back to around here. I don't want to fly it all the way. I want to fly it to around here. In fact, let's fly it until it gets, I want to keep the boxes within the camera view. So here. So in my other example, I flew quite far back and we could see gaps around the edges. This is why I did 20 boxes this time rather than the 10. So let's keep the camera view with boxes inside. This is your choice as well. You can do what you know, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. We might end up seeing some of them anyway. So let's go back to the first frame. In fact, let's go to this frame. Let's move to this frame here. Let's press the letter I here to insert a keyframe, and insert a keyframe here for the location and rotation. Then we can go back to the first frame, and right now the camera is set to 90 degrees. So let's rotate, not on this axis, we want to rotate on the Y axis. Let's rotate to around 45 degrees, and we can still see the edge here and here. So that means we've got to move the camera forward a little bit more, not too far, just so that we can't see the boxes on the edge. Let's save this and let's click play, and now these will rotate around like this. And after they rotate around, we want to move forward again and rotate that as these boxes are moving towards the camera. So let's do that next. Let's go to frame 60 and go to File, Save. Okay, so let's rotate the camera as it's moving forward through the boxes. So the smart thing for us to do is probably move to around we need to work out how long is it going to take for us to move through these boxes. So maybe around 2 seconds, I reckon. So 60, 120, 180, around here, 180. So by frame 180, we want to be somewhere inside or just past the boxes. So on the record button is already ticked. So let's move our camera forward here, across here. Let's move to around here, I reckon. And let's rotate. Not this way. We want to rotate on the Y axis, right? Rotate it around like this. Do we want to go this way or this way? Decisions. Let's go this way. I want to rotate this a bit more. So around 50 degrees. 50. So it's going to rotate this way. So we want to rotate the other way. So we want to set this to -50 on this frame. This is your choice. I mean, you've got to experiment with this, but I'm going to set mine to -50 because I want it to rotate in the same way as it does in the intro, right? So at the beginning, it's going to rotate this way, and then it's going to continue rotating that way. So it's almost like one seamless rotation, kind of. Then when it gets to here, it's going to get past these boxes to around here, and let's say around frame 225, I want to set it to minus, where are we on our rotation? Let's press I here and I here, and minus 50 to minus 90. So that should rotate it around flat basically, although the floor is here. Let's see. This is probably unwise. We can do it this way. Let's go to this frame 211. Let's save it and press F12 to render. And let's see what we see. Do we even see anything? So we see the boxes here. Can you see how in the viewport and in the actual render you see kind of two different things? So I'm not sure why that is. I've tried to work it out, but let's get to frame 225 and let's press F12 and see if we see anything. Really, we want to see nothing. We don't want to see any boxes. We still see boxes. So let's move that 225 frame. We'll click on this, left click, and drag it forward to around 260. And let's move to 260 frame. So we're moving forward. So let's press F12. And we still see that there. So we need to now move the camera forward more. So it's on 26, minus 26. Let's move it to, let's see, minus 15. Set it to around minus 15 and press F12. So we're getting closer to the boxes, but we're not past them yet. So I reckon we need to move it forward more to around minus, let's try minus 3, press F12. Okay, so 0 is going to be just past it, right? So let's set it to a positive, really positive. Yeah, positive 2 should be okay. That should be past the boxes now. So we're past the boxes. Really 0 here, that should be really exactly where the boxes are, right? Just past them. So if we went back a few frames or back a little distance, like 0.95, we should see boxes or something over the box. Yeah, we can see them, right? So really we can just set this to the Y to 0 to make life easy, if that was easy. Let's see, we'll rotate this way. So really we're rotating to here. This makes a little bit more tricky with the positioning of the text, but that's okay. Let's click on this light source. Let's go to the light source, the spotlight, and let's drag it towards the middle a bit more. So around here. Try and get it into the midpoint. This circle thing here is our field, right? It's our field wind, so we can just hide that for the minute. We don't really need to see that. We've got the spotlight here. Yeah, we didn't really position that too well before. So we're going to set that around midpoint. That should be okay. Okay. So really this keyframe, we should drag it all the way back to frame 1, because that is going to be the position for this spotlight, and it should be at that position from keyframe 1 anyway. And then we can animate its color and do all the other things that we want to do to it. So on frame, let's click on the camera. We got to frame 280, right? So on frame 280, we don't really need to move the location of this spotlight, but we want to change its color. So let's click on the color here, and let's click on the object data, and in the color press the letter I, and then in the energy press the letter I here as well. then we need to move back to the first frame. So let's click jump back to first frame. Let's make sure this keyframe is not on the first frame. Let's just drag it. That should be frame 1, right? Let's just zoom in here a little bit. I think this is frame 1. Let's move it. Oops. That's frame 2. Let's move it back 1. Let's get onto frame 1. That's frame 1 there. We want that keyframe on frame 1. So you can use the mouse wheel to zoom right in. I'm sure there's an easier way to do that, but let's just move it to frame 1. Let's zoom back out. Let's get back out. And then we know that this is the first frame, and then this is where the camera finishes at that last rotation, right? Here, because we put a keyframe here. So on this first frame, let's move to around frame 60, and then press the letter I for the color here. Letter I to insert a keyframe, and also on the energy. So on frame 1, we want to set the energy to 0. It's going to be black. We want the first frame to be black. Then as we move through, it's going to power up the energy to 6000 to here. Now we need to decide what color we want. So let's render this, F12. And I'm thinking that light blue isn't really working for me. So let's go to the color and let's see. Maybe like a mad red. I'm just going to rotate right back around to blue, right? This red is kind of cool. But when it gets to here, it's gone to this blue color. And in my original animation, I did like a darker blue. So something like maybe this sort of shade, a bit lighter. Something like this, but the energy was much lower here at this point. Let's save this and let's set the energy to around 3000 here on this frame, maybe even lower, 1500. So the energy is much lower here. Okay, let's go to this frame 60 and let's go to the shading here, and let's just rotate our map around and see what looks good. We can get some greens in there and stuff, right? You can rotate on the y-axis. You can change how this map is being lit up, right? So for you to experiment, just rotate around and see what looks good. So I think around here, minus 20, 26.8 and 233 degrees. So a lot of the cubes are lit up now in these colors. So when we go back to the render and it's zooming out like this, you're going to see a lot of these colors. So I reckon that red is probably wrong. What do we have at the beginning? Nothing, right? So it was set to red at the beginning as well. So let's set this keyframe here to a color that complements that. So maybe we'll try green. But this is quite bright, right? Maybe blue will work now because it's going to contrast with this green color. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I think that looks better for me. And the one other thing we want to do, let's move to frame 60. Let's turn off the what is this record button. We'll press number 3 on our keyboard and we'll turn off the background for the minute. So we can see the light source here. Let's zoom out. Let's press Shift A and insert another light spotlight. This one's down here, so we want to rotate it on the x-axis pointing upwards. So let's go to the object data and rotate it on the x-axis all the way 180 degrees or 180. So that's pointing here, but we want to move it forward to around here. Let's bring it down. Let's move it across and click on the, let's see, on the y-axis. Then on the Z, let's bring it down a little bit. In fact, we don't really need to bring it down. We can leave it pretty much on 0 here, because we've got that gap there, right? So we move forward to around here, then this light, let's click on it and change its color. So we want a green color, something green. Let's set the energy to around 1000 for now, and let's press 0 on our keyboard. Now we can see what the camera sees. And let's turn back on our background, and this spotlight, let's call it spotlight back, and this one, let's call it spotlight bottom, because it's at the bottom, right? And let's drag that into the collection here. So let's zoom out a little bit here and see. This green one isn't really giving us much, right? So let's set it to around 2000. Now we can see the lighting. If we set it to 0, the lighting's off, but we can still see green coming off of the HDRI map. If we set it to around 3000, then we can see it's lit up much more, the cubes. So as we fly through them, we'll get colors green and blue coming through as we fly through them, like this. So by the time we get through the cubes, that green light will be no longer relevant because the camera's moved past it. So we don't really need to animate or do anything to it. So we're going to get to this point where it rotates around. Where is it going to rotate? We need to go on our camera on frame 280. So on frame 280, we've still got loads of frames to work with. So we may not need 600 frames in here, I don't think. Probably got too many. So we can reduce that afterwards. Let's just go to the first frame and click play. It's running at 22 frames a second. So we know it's going to run at least double this speed, almost triple this speed here. So 280, let's just see. 280 divided by 60, that gives us around just under 5 seconds, right? So between here at the beginning, for it to get past all the cubes, is going to be around 5 seconds, or less than 5, for it to fully rotate. But that's fine, that should be okay. Let's move to this frame 280, and then let's middle mouse click. That takes us out of camera into perspective view, and we can zoom back a little bit to around here. Or in fact, we can go forward a bit. Let's press Shift A, and we want to insert some text, right? To do that text part, let's click text. Now we need to find it. So let's see. Smart thing for us to do is press the letter N on our keyboard, lock object to the text. Now we can see the text here, right? So we're locked to this text. Let's see. Because this thing's at an angle, it's really hard to get to, right? So we need to move back some frames. We need to move back. Let's press 0 on our keyboard, and let's rotate this. Let's get it to a point where the camera's straight, like around here. Then if we middle mouse click and rotate around the text, we'll be able to see it much easier. So you really want the camera level. I'm still working at Blender a little bit here. Why in the viewport does it still show at an angle? I'm not sure, but that's for another day. Let's press tab, and we can see this text, and we're going to type in sci-fi, right? That's what we used, or that's what I used, but you can type in anything you like. It doesn't have to be sci-fi. So let's see, I-Fi. It's really hard to see this, so let's see, we can see it here now. I'm doing it upper lowercase. Let's just go to objects, set origin, geometry origin. We're going to change this a little bit. I want to try and get this text positioned where we want it at the end. So let's press number 3. Let's turn off our background for the minute and drag the text into the collection here. and our text is right down here, so we want to move it across here and move it up. It's going to be behind these boxes. Let's zoom out. It needs to be like in line with this in line with this light source, right? So we know roughly where we want it to be. So let's move it to around here. Probably back a little bit around here. So that's the text right there. The camera is all the way back there somewhere. So let's move forward frames until we see the camera come in. Is it 280, right? Here, frame 280. This is the camera. That's the text. And that's the light source. So if we press 0 on our keyboard, and let's turn back on our background. Let's turn on the, let's see. So we need to rotate this text. It's in the wrong angle. So let's go to the object data here for the text. And let's try and rotate it first of all on the x-axis 90 degrees. And then we want to rotate it around so that it's horizontal, right? So that'll be on the y-axis 90 degrees. 90. Let's see. Minus 90. Minus 90. So now we can see the text. But we want that text. Let's press, are we in the camera view? This is the, so we can see the camera here. We can see the sci-fi text, but it needs to be much, much bigger. I think I did this all in capitals last time. We'll do it in, yeah, let's do it all in caps. So with text is selected, I'm going to press tab to edit it. And I'm going to do all capital letters, sci, all in caps, sci-fi. Like this. You can type anything you like. Let's press Ctrl S to save. We'll minimize this and open up this folder. And inside here, we will, let's go to our browser. Let's type in free commercial fonts. Then in this little box here, you can type in sci-fi. Then in the search box up here, you can type in sci-fi. Then you'll get these fonts here. I'm going to click this one. This is the one that I used in the tutorial or in the example. Let's click it. Let's click download. Let me copy this. I'll make a note of this font. And then we'll drag this font into the folder here. We'll right click and we'll extract it. We'll delete the zip file and just rename this to fonts. We can close our browser. Let's go back to Blender here. We've got the text here. Let's go to the text options here. Let's go to the font and open the folder. Let's go to here and select that font and click open. Now we can see that font style. And then we want to scale it up, right? We want it to be pretty big. Something like this sort of size. And then to reposition it, just go to object, set origin, geometry to origin. That will center it out like this. I reckon that's probably a good size. That seems to be pretty good. Then we want to middle mouse click and just rotate around this font. Just try and get it, it's a little tricky, but try and get it at an angle. Something like that will do. Go to geometry, set the extrusion to 0.2. That should be thick enough. And then the bevel depth, set it to 0.2 and set the resolution to 0.2. Then press 0 again, you'll see what it looks like in the camera view. And really what we want to do now, let's see, let's go to file, save. Let's click on the camera. Look, actually, let's click on this font first. Click on the font, and in my example, I gave it a material. Let's call this font material. And you can choose any font material you want. You can play around with the colors, but I set my one to just black, and then turn the specular all the way down like this. And I just want it to be a solid black font like this. And let's go back. Okay. we're going to have to animate this font a little bit, just its movement, its position, because we don't really want to see that on the start frame, right? We want to see that a bit later. So when it gets to around here, we'll have that font display, and then when it gets to around here, we'll keep showing, but we don't want to show it at the beginning. So there's a few ways that we can do that, but we'll work that out afterwards. Let's sort out this font down here. Now with this HDRI lighting, let's go to the shader. Let's drag this up a little bit. We want to set it to around 0.782. This option here, 0.782, and then you get these nice little shadows and this good stuff coming off of this text, right? Like this. That's how we want it. So then we'll get that effect at the beginning as well. We won't really see it because you don't see much off the sides here, but as we zoom in on this text, we're going to get this nice lighting on it. Something like that. And then what we want to do, this is frame 280. Let's go to File, Save As, version 7. And then in my example, I had some particles and stuff going on here. So let's try and do that now. Let's press number 3 on our keyboard, and then we'll hide the background. So our text is, let's just click here. This is our text here, right? Cubes are all the way over here, and then our origin point is here. So let's press Shift 0, or Shift A, sorry, Shift A. We want to insert a UV sphere, a small one. Let's drag it across here and drag it to where the light source is here. Right, let's just drag it just behind the light source. So this sphere is going to sit right behind the light source here for now, like this. And we can probably make that a bit smaller. So let's press S to scale and scale it down. And for now we can just keep our camera locked to this text to rotate around that text. That should be fine. Let's press 0 on the keyboard so we can see in the camera view. So really the light is in front of this sphere. Then let's press, let's turn back on our background so we can see it a bit clearer. Then press Shift, and so we've got the sphere selected here. Let's right click up here on collection and create a new collection and call that one particles. And then we've got the sphere here. Let's leave it as sphere for now. Click on it, go to the viewport, press Shift D to duplicate it and drag it up. So we've got one here. Then press Shift D to duplicate that one and drag it across. So we've got 2. Do we need more than 2? 2 is probably going to be fine. Then this sphere, the original one that sits in the middle, we want to rename that to emitter. Then these two spheres, select the first one and then Shift click and hold down the Shift key and left click on this one and drag them into particles here. Then click on this first one, go to the material, click new material, and we'll set it to an emission shader and we'll set it to 10. Is 10 going to be enough? We turn down our thing, so we'll sort that out afterwards. Just leave it at 10 for now, and then click on the other one and then go new, and we'll set that to an emission shader, set that to 10 and choose like a light blue color, something light blue. Then click on the emitter, click new, and no, don't do that. Remove that. Click the minus here. We don't want a material for it, so click the emitter, click on the particles, and just move your mouse here, it should appear. Click new, go to File, Save, I think 1000 should be more than enough. Then we want to, let's see, we want to start the emission on frame 280. So let's middle mouse click and drag across here, right? So we can see frame 280 all the way down to 600. We shouldn't need that many frames, but let's see what happens here. So really we want to end this on, let's say if we start at 280, let's end it on 400. Let's see, 280. Let's do some maths here. We want the particles to last around 2 seconds, right? So that's 120 frames. So that should take us to 400. So we're going to end it on 400. And then the start frame, we're going to set it to 280. So 280 to 400, but the lifetime is 50, which is fine. Let's set them to random lifetime. Let's scroll down and click File, Save, and go to, let's see, let's go to the render as collection. In this collection, we'll set it to collection particles here, particles. Set random. And then they're moving in this direction. Let's see. We want them to be moving towards the text. So they're dropping down basically, right, in this downwards direction. So let's see. If we reduce the gravity, so now they're moving towards the camera more. Let's bring that gravity down more. Now they're moving directly towards the camera, kind of. Pretty close. Let's bring the gravity all the way down. So now they should be just moving straight towards the camera, right? That's what we want. Like this. But we need way more particles, I think. So let's set the particle amount to around 2,500. 2,500. No, that's the normal. So let's cancel that. Leave the normal at 1. So number of particles is up here, 2,500. Then we'll set the physics Brownian to around 6. So that should make them move a bit more random. Where's this all looks okay. Let's just middle mouse click and let's try and get an angle here. See this, where is this? I'm just going to try and reduce the velocity. Let's bring that down. So I reckon, okay, I know what's going on here. So I'm getting confused, right? So what we need to do right now, the wind object is pretty much holistic, right? This field wind. Let's turn it back on. Here it is, right here actually. So this field wind is set to a very high number, like 40. So I'm wondering why these particles moving so fast. It's because this field wind is not only affecting the cubes, but it's also affecting these particles as well. So let's move back a few frames. Let's go back, let's zoom out and let's press 0 on our keyboard. Let's zoom back out again here. So we're close to frame 0, right? So we know on frame 280, it was 280. Let's go to frame 280 and press F12. And we can see that we've gone past the boxes and we've got this render here at the moment, right? So what we want to do is turn off the... Let's hit the record button here. Let's go to this. This is the force field, right? So the strength is set to 40 at the moment. So we'll press I here on the strength to insert a keyframe at frame 280. Then on frame, let's go to the first frame. And the fields, the strength here, let's press the letter I, and that's also set to 40. So between these frames, the wind field, will always be set to 40, which is what we want for the boxes, right? But at frame 280, it gets past the boxes. So on frame 281, we're going to click I here to insert a keyframe and set the strength down to 0. Then these particles will not get pushed because the wind is set to 0. So if we zoom in a little bit, for now we can do lock camera to object. We can click here and just get rid of this text. So click on the X, and then we can press the letter N to close that. Let's untick the record button. And when we get to here, we can see the particles are not moving so fast. But let's click on the emitter. Let's go to the particle system and go to the viewport and turn off show emitter and turn it off also in the render. So the render will be up here, turn it off here. And let's turn off the overlays for the minute. And then we can see these particles being generated. But we want them to move much more forward, right? So let's go to the velocity here. And let's set this to around 6. Let's try that. Now they're getting pushed forward more. But I still don't think that's far enough. So let's set this to around 10. And they're quite small, right? So let's go to the scale and set this to 1. That's way too big. Let's set it to 0.1. So they're a bit bigger, and let's set them to random scale. So some would be small, some would be big. Let's click on this sphere here, at this one, particle sphere, and click on the other one, these two. Let's zoom out on our camera. So zoom as far out as you can. Click on the overlays and then drag them in this direction. Just drag them out of the camera view and just move back, and we shouldn't see them. Can you see they're on the side here? So click on both of them and just drag them out from to the side here. These are the particles. We don't want them to be rendered in our scene. So as we fly through, let's just zoom in with the camera. We'll get to around here. And I want these particles to live a little bit longer. They're not living long enough. So let's go to the emitter. Let's go to the lifetime and set it to about 100. So now they'll live a lot longer. Let's see. Yeah, that's what we want. We want this like... Let's go to File, Save. Let's click Bake All Dynamics here. I'm just going to bake the particles and press F12, and you can see a render and see what it looks like. So now these looking pretty good. I think this will be fine. And we're going to click on the text here. And we're going to go to the physics. And in fact, we'll go to object first. Go to convert and convert it to a mesh. Then when we click on the text here, go to the physics, select collision, then click on the emitter and go back to the particle setting, delete the bake and rebake it. Now these particles will hit the text. So if we turn the overlay off and we go back to when they start to emit and click play, some of them will hit the text and bounce off of it. Yeah, that should be fine. So the last thing we want to do, so I don't think we're going to need all 600 frames. So let's go to frame, we start the particles on frame 280. So let's click here, delete bake, and go to frame 280. So on frame 280, scroll down to the particle, where is it? The particle size here. Press the letter I to insert a keyframe. Then move to frame 460. And then press the letter I here to insert a scale as well for the keyframe for the scale. Then move to frame 5. On my one I think it's like around frame 5. Let's see. We'll probably have to bake this to see it quickly. Set to around 501 and press the letter I here as well for the scale, and then click on the scale and set it to 0. So between these frames here, let's see, have we done this right? Okay, we have to hit the record button, that might help. So hit the record button, then click here on this frame 501, that's the keyframe, then click here, press 0 and hit enter. So between these two frames the particles will fade to a 0 diameter, so they'll fade away basically. Let's see what, I think that's going to be enough particles, right? Should be good. Okay. So let's hit the record button, go back to the first frame, and then let's play this. It's going to play at quite a low frame rate. We need to sort out this sci-fi text, and we could leave it like that, but we kind of want to move it. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. Let's go to the first frame. Let's go to File, Save, and let's hit the record button. When we hit that record button, we're going to move up to the text here, and we're going to go over the I icon, this I icon. And we're going to press the letter I. Not active, no active keying set. So let's click on the text, then press the letter I. I thought you could insert keyframe, but I'm pretty sure you can. Just click on it to hide it. No active keyframe set. I want to hide this text and then show it. Maybe I have to do this in render view. Yeah, you have to click on the camera and set the letter I, or press the letter I to insert a keyframe. So we're going to insert a keyframe here, and then we're going to move to, let's say, around frame 60 right here, and we're going to press the letter I here again to insert a keyframe. So between here and here this text is showing, but we're going to go back to the first frame and turn it off. Let's see, let's turn it off. So it should be off now. Let's click on it one more time. Let's turn it off here. So maybe on this frame we need to go to frame, but that'll be in the render view, right? So if we press F12, we shouldn't see it in the render now. So it's empty, right? There's nothing in the render. So if we go to frame 159, or sorry, 59. Let's see, 59. Yeah, 59. On frame 59, if we render it, we shouldn't see that sci-fi text. We shouldn't see it. So we don't see it here, right? But if we go to frame 60, on this frame we turn that text back on for its visibility in the render view. Here it says disable object in render, but we've just enabled it on that frame. So if we press F12, we still don't see it. So let's go here and turn it on. Maybe it's off at the moment. Let's turn it on. Let's press F12 now. Let's see. I don't seem to see it. I did this a different way in my other animation, but I want to try it this way. So I think it's active at the moment, so let's turn it off. Let's render that frame. Okay, I can see it now, so let's tick it one more time. It's green at the moment, so that should mean it's off. We shouldn't see it in this render now. Okay, we don't see it, that's good. So let's go to frame, let's skip to this frame here. And we shouldn't see it at the moment, but if I tick it, it seems to apply it to both keyframes. So let's go back one keyframe to 59 and then press the letter I here again, and we'll leave that like that. Then we'll go to the next keyframe, 60, and then press this. And let's see now, let's press on this F12. Now we see it, right? But if we go back one frame to, let's go back one frame, frame 59, we shouldn't see it on frame 59. But we do. So let's close that. On frame 59, let's press this. And then let's render it. We shouldn't see it now. But we still see it. So I don't get that. We shouldn't really see that. Alright, I don't get that. So what we're going to do is click on this keyframe, hit the delete key, and click delete keyframe. Click this one, right click, delete keyframe, click this one, right click, delete keyframe, then click this first one, right click, and hit the delete keyframe. So we'll be back to our normal step or our normal stage, and we're going to do this a different way. File, save. Let's see. I'm going to do it the way I did it last time. So on this frame here, I'm going to click on the text object, and I'm going to go to the object data here, and on the y-axis, well actually in the location, I'm just going to press I to insert a keyframe. I'm going to go back one frame and do the same again, press I to insert a keyframe here on the location. Then I'm going to go all the way back to the first frame and press I to insert a location, and then on the y-axis, what did I do last time? I moved it right the way back until it disappears. You can't see it no more. Let's press F12 and you don't see it. So then as we move forward, we'll get to this frame here and it will start to appear. That's the way I did it last time. I should have just done it that way, but I wanted to see if this turning this camera thing on and off, I can't. I've used it before and it seemed to work, so I don't know if there's something up with Blender. Who knows? Let's go back and play. Let's go back and play. And then it kind of fades in. It actually looks better than the last one I did. It kind of fades in this time. Okay, so last few things, let's click on camera. The last thing the camera does is on 280, it rotates to this angle. So let's see, the particles finish on, let's click the emitter. The particles finish on frame 500, right? So on frame 460, on this frame, in fact I want to do this a bit earlier, let's say frame 420, we'll go to the camera, Press I to insert a keyframe for the location and rotation. Let's rotate this text this way. Let's say around here. And I want to move it slightly, like here. So really what I should have done is move to this frame for 20, then hit the record button, then rotate it. If you don't hit the record button, it won't remember that. So let's move it and move it on the Z axis. Let's see. To around here. And as these particles fade out, let's say around 5, let's say to frame 500, we'll press I and then I here again to insert keyframes, and we're going to rotate it more on the Y axis, just a little bit more, to around here, and then on the Y here we're going to move forward and fly straight through this, what do we call it, that hyphen. Done. That's frame 500. Normally I'll leave a few blank frames, so let's say 510, let's put 10 blank frames. So let's go to 510 here. There's a few blank frames. The only other thing I want to look at quickly, let's go to frame 60, file, save. Let's go to the render settings and let's try this radius here. This radius was, let's turn it up. Let's set the threshold. I want to try and get rid of that glare. We just have to bring it down. Turn off the record button. So these little glare things, let's see if we press F12, let's see if we see that in the render. Because sometimes in the viewport and what you see in the render are two different things. You do see them, but they look okay. They don't look too bad. It's where they blow out, right? I think I ended up inserting a keyframe for this because I recorded it. So let's click on it. I think that's the keyframe for that. No, can't be, because Bloom doesn't have, you can't key Bloom. Can't keyframe this, so that's not it. So we hit the record button. We might get away with a bit more radius here. Let's press F12 on this one. Let's see, let's fly through it a little bit. Yeah, we need to bring the radius down, because if you get these, you're going to get these flashes, like white flashes in the animation. It doesn't look right. I rendered that one thing and it just didn't look right at all. So bring these right down. You can have them there, but make them pretty small. You don't want to turn the radius down. Otherwise it ain't going to look right. So I think that's going to be pretty good. So let's go to frame 1. Let's go to file, save. Let's go to the output. Let's see, in the render settings, we're going to set them to 120. Everything else in here we've already set up. This is all good. Let's go to the output. This is all okay, 60 frames a second. Let's go to AVI JPEG, that's the file type, RGB. Folder, let's go to my desktop, click in here, click accept. Let's press Control S to save, and then in fact, before you render, click on the emitter, go to the particle settings, and click Bake All Dynamics. Then go to the cubes. Where are them cubes gone? What do we call them? Cubes here. Go to the particle emitter, delete the bake, and click Bake All Dynamics. Then just give it one click playthrough here. Make sure that you see pretty much everything running okay. As long as it looks okay in here, in theory when you render it should be fine as well. We'll just give it one quick playthrough rather than rendering out all these frames and find out you've got a problem afterwards. Then that'll be a pain in the ass, right? After you rendered it all. So that looks okay. Just move to like a frame like this, press F12. Just make sure the render looks pretty much like what you see in the viewport. So this looks okay. Got this cut off here, right? So that's not right. Let's go back a few frames to here. Frame 280. So it looks like say around here, it looks like those cubes can still be seen in the camera view. So we should be able to fix that, but it's a bit of a pain. Yeah, you can still see the cubes here. I don't know, maybe it'll be alright. Because they're quite let's see. But you don't see them in the viewport, right? It's gone past it now, so let's render at this frame. I think we shouldn't see them cubes on this frame for sure. So we might see them on a few frames, the edge of those cubes. Probably around, sort of around here as well maybe. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to see those here and here. Do we want to see them? Not really. Let's see around here. We can see them here and here. Those are cubes, right? So we should really fix it, because if there's a problem we should learn how to fix it. So click on the camera, let's go back to this keyframe here. This keyframe, hit the record button, and we need to move this camera forward a bit. Let's move it to like around 1.8. And then on this keyframe, let's set it to 1.8 as well. And then here it flies out. So let's see what we see in this keyframe. Let's press F12. We should be in front of those cubes now, so we shouldn't see them. So we don't see the cubes no more. So basically the camera was sitting exactly in between two cubes on that, because it was set to 0 on the y-axis, on this y location. So it's sitting right in the middle of two cubes. So if we render at this frame here, it's worth doing a few quick tests. We should get past that problem, hopefully. Yeah, it's gone. So that we won't get them sharp lines down the sides here. We didn't want, it's not something I wanted, so we should fix it. Let's try this frame here quickly. Right, I think we're good. Let's untick the record button. We'll go back to the first frame, click on the emitter, delete the bake, rebake it, click on the cubes, delete that, bake and rebake it. I'm going to try one frame here quickly, F12. Looks fine. So I'll go back to the first frame, go to File, Save, Control F12, or go to Render and click Render Animation, Control F12 here, right? So Control F12 is going to start rendering out them frames and creating the JPEG AVI file. So then we're pretty much done. So we'll wait for this to render out. I'm going to stop the video here and then we'll come back and watch the final animation sequence and see what it looks like. Here we can see the volumetric coming through. Okay, so Blender's finished rendering out all of the 510 frames. So we'll close down this and we'll go to File, Save, and we'll close down Blender. Then on my desktop, I've got this new AVI. We'll make a copy here. So we've got the original one and this new version. Let's check out this new version. We'll leave it on looping for now. Repeat. We'll see what it looks like. I already think this version is better than the last one I did actually. I think the movement is better and the colours are better. I think everything came out a lot better in this version. But we'll check out the old version that I did first. So this is the original one. I think it's a bit dark. It looks okay as well, but I think the bloom settings were too high. And I think this end sequence was a bit too dark. But in our new version, we can see it's much clearer now. The text is much clearer, everything is much brighter, and I think it works better, definitely. So I don't know what you think. Hopefully your one came out okay as well. If you follow the instructions, you should get something quite similar. Try different color schemes. You don't have to stick with this blue color scheme. Try different HDRI map as well, so you get different lighting effects, and try different particles. You can go and experiment with this. You don't have to use cubes. You could use different types of shapes. Those could have been spheres as well. It didn't necessarily have to be cubes. So you can go now and experiment with this. You can fly through this scene any way that you want. You can move the camera. You can do a lot of different things with this animation and make it your own. You can change the sci-fi text at the end. Maybe put your company name there or something a bit different. But overall, I'm quite happy with this version. I think it is an improvement on the demo version I created. So let's watch it one more time. Okay, let's close down this. That's the end of this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you on the next DCP Web tutorial.